I like working mainly from drawings, although I do use camera occasionally when I can't think of any other way of getting an image done. But I do a drawing on the spot and then take that home and just start working on it and seeing if there's any potential in it. You've got an image that you're interested in and you refine that and then you've got to get it onto the plate. Now that involves a lot of spontaneity in a way, because if you like the image that you've got so far enough, then you want to get that accurately onto the plate. So quite often tracing it onto the plate or something like that. Now the way that aquatint is a way of getting areas of tone of light and dark rather than lines, which most people think of as etching, a linear drawing with a needle. Aquatint is a way of getting blocks of tone. And the way I do it is by sprinkling resin dust onto the plate, heating it so that the resin melts into little blobs. And each little blob, millions of them, each little blob protects the plate from the acid. So the acid eats out between each blob of resin. Now if you want a white area on the plate, on the print, you stop that area out with a stop-out varnish which protects the plate. And you etch it in the acid for the next lightest tone, which may be a few seconds. Take it out of the acid, stop that out, etch it for the next tone. Take it out of the acid, stop that out, and so on and so on. You might have, say, a dozen etches, and the last one will be the very darkest black areas. So you've covered up most of the plate with stop-out varnish by that time, and you've just left a little area of black. Then you get rid of the resin. You get rid of that with meths or something like that, and ink up the plate. You cover it with printing ink, and then wipe the ink off, and the ink stays in the hollows which have been hollowed out by the acid. And it goes through. You have to have a very high pressure press, and you damp the paper first. A high pressure press because the paper has got to suck the ink out of the hollows. It's the opposite of a relief print, like a lino print or a fingerprint, something like that, where the ink stays on the raised surfaces. Here it goes into the lowered surfaces, and you wipe it off the raised surface. Normal way of doing colour prints is one plate per colour, but that's very expensive in copper plate or zinc. But what I do, which it just involves using one plate, is provided you've got fairly simple areas of colour, the ink that you use, I mean it's paint really, I spread it on in that area with a bit of card, wipe that off, put the next colour on in another area, wipe that off, and then print the whole thing all at once. So you've got an area of brown there, an area of dark blue there, and a mixture maybe here and there. Right. And it's all printed in one printing. Those branches are left exposed to the acid when the spaces between the branches have been stopped out with stop-out varnish. So you're left with a negative of a tree, if you see what I mean. So you're working all the time in reverse. You're working in negative, and you're painting this black varnish on in the spaces. Now that's got lines on it, but they're not hard, clear lines like a needle would make. They look more like pencil lines. And this is called soft ground etching. You cover the plate you roll hot wax onto it, hot wax, and the wax, it has got tallow mixed into it, so it stays tacky. And if you put a bit of paper over that and draw on it, that miraculously pulls off the wax just where your pencil has been. And so you get really a sort of like a pencil line and a soft sort of line rather than a hard one. And that's quite an interesting way of using it. So it's a mixture of, that's aquatint, you see. You can see the difference. And this is like a pencil drawing. I don't have a clear idea of what I'm going to do. In fact, sometimes I don't have any idea. I just vaguely like this idea. And I just start working to see if anything will come out of it. Rather than having, as some artists do, a clear-cut idea which I just work from, I find ideas as I go along. If I knew what I was going to do before I started, there wouldn't be any incentive to do it. It's that discovery.
I'm with you.
Up to a certain point, I'm just making marks on a paper or whatever it is, which don't really mean anything. Then something happens. Maybe just a stray shape emerges, or a brush stroke, or I don't know what it is, but something emerges, and that suddenly latches or hooks on in my mind, and that leads to a chain reaction. You respond to that by doing something else, some other part of the picture, and that leads to another thing, and so on. And you get to a point which you couldn't have foreseen. And that, to me, is it's something that I suppose is in you, but you don't know about it. I don't know whether that's clear. But it's a process of discovery, I suppose. I couldn't have forecast any of these before I started, but that's the excitement of it. And with etching, I mean, the beauty of it to me is you don't know what's happening. The plate is in the acid, and you can't see anything happening at all. And so when you finish etching it and take a print, that first moment when you pull the paper up, it can either make your day or ruin it, ruin the next few days. But that's really my motivation in a way, to find something as I go along. And I suppose in a way you're finding something about yourself or about the world outside that you didn't really